Well, I probably should introduce myself. I'm David Reed Barger, and Reed, I was named after my grandfather, who actually passed away before I was born. I was born June 6, 1955, in, of all places, Arkansas, at Camp Chaffee, Arkansas. My father was in the military at that time, serving as a military policeman. And I think probably one of the most interesting stories about my birth was that my father was on post at the time, and he was not relieved at his post. They called him and said, "Stay there. We took your wife to the hospital, the Army hospital, and she's going to have the baby." And subsequently, when he was finally relieved at post, which was several hours later, he rushed to the post hospital. And when he walked in, or I should say when he ran in, they said, "Your wife is doing fine, and your son, he's over there." So I thought that was probably one of the most fun stories I heard. Just as an aside, I still have the bill for my hospital stay, or I should say my mother's hospital stay, at the maternity ward in Camp Chaffee, and it was $5, the total for 6 days. So that's where I was born. Shortly after, well, actually less than a year after, my father retired from the military after 8.5 years of service, and he moved with my mother to Esopus, New York. Esopus was the old homestead of my mother. My mother was a Freer, and if you follow history in the Hudson Valley, the Freers were the French Huguenots who arrived in the New Paltz area. So she was related to all the Freers who were French Huguenots. I was raised in Esopus for 20 years of my life. Esopus was a great place, not unlike Falls Village. Esopus now has grown tremendously over the years, but at the time I was raised in Esopus, we were pretty much the size of Falls Village. Perhaps another church and another store, but the same type of tight-knit community. I was raised on the family's old farm. It was my mother's old farm, and my grandmother actually lived with us until she passed away. So it was a great childhood. I went to a Catholic school, a Catholic grade school, St. Joseph's, which closed the year I graduated. Perhaps I was the last student they wanted to let out the door. No, I kid around about that, but they closed due to finances, and I was taught by the Benedictine nuns. In Esopus, just another little bit of background about me. I lived about 4 miles away from a seminary. It was Mount St. Alphonsus Seminary, where the Redemptorist priests were. And as a kid, we used to go down there and play hockey with them. They had a hockey rink, and they had retired New York City police horses, which were up there in years and really gentle animals. We were able to ride those, and so I really, again, it was a great place to be raised. I became a Boy Scout, and I attained the rank of Eagle Scout, something I still am very, very proud of. I still stay in touch with a lot of the young men who were Eagle Scouts with me. My father was also involved in scouting. My mother was a den mother for Cub Scouts when I was a Cub Scout. This is my Boy Scout uniform. Just a little explanation of what's on here. This is my Eagle patch. This one indicates that I was in Webelos, which was in between Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts. I was a member of the Half Moon Lodge of the Order of the Arrow in the Rip Van Winkle Council. I was a senior Boy Scout. And let's see, I'll just show you over here. The patch was of my patrol, which is a panther. We were known as the Kanish. And over on this side, aside from our Kingston, New York Troop 9, is my patch for senior patrol leader. Went to a regional high school. I should have mentioned that right after the Catholic school that I went to, St. Joseph's. I went to New Paltz Central High School. We probably had one of the most diverse populations of a high school class. We had 162 in our class, and we had people from literally all over the world. And that was primarily because they were the children of professors that were at SUNY New Paltz. So it was really great. And I didn't know what diversity was. I just thought that was kind of the way it always was, because of all of these kids you went to school with, all of your classmates. In high school, I wrestled. Before that, I did some club wrestling, but I wrestled in high school. I wrestled at 177 and 188 pounds, 2 different weight divisions. It depended on what my coach thought as the particular weight category I should be wrestling in at any particular match. It's all part of the strategy of who you can beat and who you can't, and where they need the points put up on the board. So that was probably, there's an old saying, once you've wrestled, everything else in life is easy. And I think that's very, very true. But I wrestled in high school. In high school, I met my wife. My wife was a classmate of mine, believe it or not, all the way through Catholic school, into high school, and I asked her out to the junior prom. She said yes, and from that point forward, we've been together well over 50 years. We'll be celebrating our 47th wedding anniversary in January, so it's kind of funny when you can look out there and say high school sweethearts. Yes, we were high school sweethearts. High school, I was involved in not just sports, but a number of other activities. One of the activities I was involved in was youth in government. And youth in government was an organization within the school where, again, New Paltz was a regional high school, but you ran for county office or state office against other regional schools in the area. And I was, in my junior year, I was voted assemblyman from our New York district, and sent to Albany for a day, and had other duties for a month, actually the month of November, where you actually went and met with the assemblyman and did things, and then you came back to the school and reported. So that was my first foray into politics. After high school, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. No, that's not exactly true either. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be involved in law enforcement. And the reason I wanted to be involved in law enforcement is because on my mom's side of the family there was a long line of blue. My great-grandfather was a Bobby in England. My grandfather, who was English, attempted to join the New York City Police Department. And if you know anything about the history of the New York City Police Department, he being English and the New York City Police Department at the turn of the last century being primarily Irish, he was unable to get a job. So he became an Iceman. But all of my cousins, uncles, what have you, they all his children, they were all New York City police officers, which certainly made him proud. And I still have cousins who are New York City police officers. So I guess one could say it was predestined that I was going to be in law enforcement. I started my law enforcement career early, working as a security guard at a local hospital as I was attending college. I also worked as a local constable. I was one of the youngest constables in the state of New York for the town of Esopus where I lived. From there, I ended up going to SUNY New Paltz. Still, while I was going to college and working there as a campus security officer. And it was while I was there that I was taking a number of exams, the New York State Corrections exam, the New York City Police Department exam, what was New York State Police exam, and took the Connecticut State Police exam. And I was going through the process with all of these agencies, and the Connecticut State Police were the first ones to call. And when I say the process, you initially take the written exam. Should you pass the written exam, then you're sent to a physical agility exam. Then from there, you go for a physical, a medical physical, if you will. Then you go on to a polygraph test. So all these were going on at once, literally, between New York, the jobs in New York City, and Connecticut. And Connecticut called first, so I grabbed onto Connecticut. I'm so happy to say that I came to Connecticut because the opportunities that I've had in Connecticut I may not have had anywhere else. I entered the academy in August 1976 and graduated from the academy January 7th, 1977. If you think a man's lifetime changes so quickly in 24 hours, on January 8th, my wife and I were married. We had a one-day honeymoon. On January 10th, at, I like to say, dark 30, I was reporting for duty at Troop B in North Canaan. Now here's where the saga begins, that I landed in Falls Village. My first sergeant on the job was Peter G. Lawson. And of all the sergeants I ever had, he was probably the one who formed the rest of my career. Peter took me under his wing and really helped me develop in the job. I can't say enough good things about him as sergeant. He really formed me into what I was going to go through in my entire career. He was very, very helpful. Well, now's the story of how I got in Falls Village. He pointed out to me that he was the only state police officer living in Falls Village, that they probably needed someone else because he was getting ready to retire in the late 70s. So he thought, after taking me under his wing, he thought it would be a good idea that maybe I should be the next trooper to live in Falls Village. So what happened was he brought me around Falls Village everywhere from the town hall all the way to the school, to the DM Hunt Library, down to the falls, Jacob's Garage, Houston's Garage was still there, just everywhere in town, and introduced me to a number of people and said, this is the town that you want to live in. You don't want to live in Sharon, Salisbury, North Canaan, Norfolk, whatever. He said, this is the town you want to live in. And another little funny story was that his wife, Faye, she was in real estate. if I remember correctly, she was working for DeVoe Real Estate. She had just started at the time. Well, I said to Sergeant Lawson, I said, Sarge, I really like Falls Village. As a matter of fact, I liked the Lee H. Kellogg School. We didn't have any children at the time. And I said, I could see, it's not unlike the school I went to. I said, I really, really like it. And he said, okay, by the way, my wife is in the real estate business. And he said, there's some property for sale. It's over on Amy Road, and there's a little background about John Fasheen and so on and so forth, who owned all this property. But there's about a 2.5 acre plot over there, and if you're interested, we could work with Faye and see if you could get it. Well, now you're sitting on it. Thank you. So you're here. So now you know how we got here. But we built here starting in 1981 when my first daughter was born. She was born February 2nd of 1981, and it was shortly thereafter that we started building. So then my second daughter was born January 15th, 1985, 4 years later. So I've raised both my children here in Falls Village through the Lee H. Kellogg School, which I can't even say enough good things about. My oldest daughter is a teacher, and the reason that she's a teacher is because of the teachers she had at Kellogg School. She will tell you that. I had a great career with the state police. I was at the troop until 1982, Troop B. I was a canine handler there. I actually handled 2 dogs, a dog by the name of Chip and a dog by the name of Tug in that time. And I was so fortunate that I got to do a lot with the dogs. I got to do a lot of dog work. People in the area probably remember me as always having a German Shepherd in the back of my car. And again, I worked not just in this area, but when you have a canine, you can be called outside of the troop area. So I worked in just about every other troop across the state. But I was also worked in Massachusetts. I also worked in New York because at that time, the state police in Lee didn't have a dog, and the state police in New York at Troop K in Poughkeepsie didn't have a dog. So I would be working eastern Dutchess County and southern Berkshire County also. So I really did. I got to do an awful lot. I got to do so much that when there was an opening in the emergency services unit, canine unit, I applied to become a trainer, and I ended up going there in 1985 as a trainer. It was one of the best times in my career. I handled the bloodhound. I was so fortunate to be there. I was part of the training staff. We trained dogs from all over the United, not just our state, but we trained dogs from the New England states, other dogs from across the United States, and we even trained police officers from places such as Egypt, Chile, Cyprus. So it was just fabulous for me to work in that environment. I was very proud to say here, we solved more than one crime and found more than one person. So enough said about that. I was promoted to sergeant. I left the unit for 6 months because the policy was at that time, wherever you were, you had to leave. So I came back to Troop B for 6 months, and then was transferred back to the K-9 unit, and I actually headed the unit. I was the first sergeant that they ever had in the K-9 unit. When you think about it, you never want to be involved in a case where you're searching for someone who murdered another police officer. And worth mentioning here, when you look at benchmarks you want to hit, this is a benchmark I never wanted to hit. When June 5th of 1991, Trooper Russ Bagshaw was killed, shot and killed. He was ambushed over in the town of Columbia. And to this day, it still affects me. And I can tell you why. My birthday, as I told you, is June 6th. And my wife and I and kids had something planned for June 6th. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I got called from headquarters on June 6th, or June 5th, I'm sorry. And I spent the next several days working my bloodhound where Trooper Bagshaw had been shot and killed. Just to tell you a little bit more about the story and not going into any of the details, but I arrived there, I employed the bloodhound. We found a lot of evidence that were tied into the Johnson brothers, who in fact ambushed Trooper Bagshaw, and we provided an investigative link by following where they went when they left the sports shop. It was Land and Sea Sports Shop. We actually tracked to where a car was parked, and the car was no longer there, but they were able to cast the tires, and of course through some, as they say, rubber soles, those investigators did a tremendous job from the state police working the area. They found out what the car was that had been parked in that area and matched the tires and tied everything together. So I have to tell you that around my birthday, I always think of Russ Bagshaw having been ambushed there. Those of you who've heard of Dr. Henry Lee, he was instrumental. He was our forensic man there, and he did a tremendous job in putting the case together. But we provided an investigative link, something I'll always be tremendously proud of insofar as what you accomplish in your career, but something I wish I never had to do. From that point on, I continued in the K-9 unit. I received several national recognitions from national organizations regarding the use of a bloodhound. I got to train all over the United States, teach at seminars and so on, and then got promoted to Master Sergeant. Master Sergeant is an executive officer at a troop. So you kind of sometimes get yourself promoted out of where you are. So I ended up initially at Troop L in Litchfield, then to Troop B, then to Troop L, and I retired from Troop L as the executive officer at Troop L in January of 2000. I took a weekend off and I went to work at Quinnipiac University as the assistant chief of security. I kid around about this, but I am truly serious. I always talked about writing a book after 24 years with the state police. I spent 6 months at the university. I could have written 6 volumes, a volume a month, because it was probably one of the most interesting jobs that I ever had outside of the state police, and certainly was one of the most rewarding jobs I had also. I retired in 2015 from Quinnipiac University because of a promise I made my high school sweetheart and wife. And I said, I will only spend 40 years in law enforcement. And people would say, well, why 40 years? And I said, probably because I didn't think I'd make 50. So I picked a decade below. I actually spent 42 years in law enforcement if you take in total. So it takes, and I have to say this here, it takes a very special partner, a very special wife in this case, to be the wife of a police officer, no matter where you are, or a firefighter, or any first responder, because you're doing shift work. When you're working midnights, when school's not in, it's during the summertime, you're trying to catch some sleep during the day. Your wife tries to keep the kids out of the house, tries to let you get some sleep. There's just so many things. And when I went to the K-9 unit in emergency services, it was nothing for us to get a call 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and say, hey, you have to go here, you have to go there. But it takes someone really, really special to navigate those waters of being a first responder. And I say, whether you're in law enforcement, you're a firefighter, you're an EMT, even in now with volunteer firefighters here, it's a joke. When the whistle blows, everyone goes, and that's what you need with a volunteer fire department. So 2015, I retired. I knew everyone who was involved in town government here, and in the back of my head, or maybe on my shoulder somewhere, I'm not sure whether it was the right shoulder or the left shoulder, I heard Pete Lawson saying to me, when you retire, when you have the time, actually, get involved in town government. So I waited till the next election cycle, and that was 6 years ago. Threw my hat in the ring for selectman. And now I've thrown my hat in for first selectman, which seems to be a natural transition. Just want to talk a little bit about Falls Village. This is truly a very, very tight-knit community where everyone respects everyone respects everyone's point of view. We can have an open discussion about a lot of things. Sometimes they get heated, sometimes they don't. But again, it's a great town to live in, and I can't imagine having raised my children anywhere else. I can only fall back on when my oldest daughter went to college. Her class was roughly 1,100 students, her freshman class. And I can remember her, when she found out that that was the number, she said, Dad, Mom, that's more people than live in Falls Village. In a smaller area. So it was a little bit of a culture shock for her, but I mean, just kidding about that. Again, I can't say enough good things about Falls Village. It is truly a great place to live.